fun, and I'm here to talk to you about sex and the singularity. Sex is an incredibly interesting topic, and people say, why do you speak about sex? I speak about sex because, one, I'm English, and two, the English are absolutely obsessed with sex, but they're too scared to talk about it. There's a massive amount of repression, internal repression. So I moved to the west coast of Canada, and when I moved here I was married, and then I got divorced, and I was like, wow, I'm dating. And then it's like, this place is liberal, like really, really liberal, and you've got lots of different genders, lots of different conversations, lots of different dynamics of relationships, you know, monogamy, pansexuality, polyamory. I was like, oh my God. So I started reading about it a lot, and I started dating people of different backgrounds, and I started learning more about how sex and technology integrated. And now I'm here with a point of view. And today's just the beginning of the discussion. And I'm actually going to go ahead and write a book about sex and technology later this year. Because it's very academic, sex and technology. There's some amazing people like Violet Blue down in San Francisco talk about sex and technology, gender equality, gender role, a whole bunch of different things. But I think that there's a really deeply human thing that needs to be discussed about technology, intimacy, and gender. I'm going to touch on a few of things today. Okay, so today's about gender. There's a number of different genders here. The one that I hadn't heard of intergender before. I hadn't heard of ally before. But you know, there's lots of different configurations of humans and the gender within themselves. Also, we're going to talk about sex, which is the activity of sex, including specifically sexual intercourse. And then we're going to talk a little bit about the singularity and where we're headed. So the singularity is that point in time when artificial intelligence will have progressed to the point of greater than human intelligence, radically changing civilization and perhaps human nature. And people like Kurzweil, talk about that being in 2045 and whatever, and what happens when we get there. Can we actually simulate intelligence in a robot and consciousness and as such? Like, I studied it 20 years ago, it was hard then, and it's hard now. And it's going to be hard going forward to work out what these robots are going to be like, what these interfaces are going to be like, what these people are going to be like. But let's start off where we need to start off. We'll just jump. Porn, right? Omnipresent. Who knows where this image is from? Bartos?
Yeah.
Sorry?
Tetsuo the Iron Man.
Tetsuo the Iron Man. Japanese, I think late 80s. Yeah. Pretty stop motion, black and white. This is a guy on the left-hand side here with a massive, massive drill. It's an amazing film. It's about really transhumanism. It's dark. It's a dark, dark future. But I'm not going to talk about that world. I'm going to talk about the real world. 34% of internet users have experienced unwanted exposure to pornographic content through ads, pop-up ads, misdirected links, or emails. That's you and me, kids, grandparents, everyone. Porn is pervasive. I think they were saying that porn generates more traffic than Amazon, Netflix, and Google together. It's ridiculous. 11, what was it, the average age that a kid sees porn for the first time online, and you can't unsee something once you've seen it, is 11 years old. It's bad. This is interesting. A researcher from the University of Montreal wanted to study whether pornography has an impact on guys' sex lives. The trouble is that they couldn't actually find someone that hadn't ever watched sex online as a control group. How can you study something using the scientific method if you cannot actually find a control group? So that makes it really difficult. So we're sort of swimming along and working out what does sex and sexuality mean in terms of pornography, because everyone's seen it. Many of you might have even seen it this morning. There's probably even a percentage of you that may have even seen it whilst at this conference this morning. You think I'm joking? I didn't know. But I mentioned about 11-year-olds and, you know, you've seen pornography for the first time. It's serious. A significant relationship exists between teens, between frequent pornography use and feelings of loneliness, including major depression, and identity, and what it means to make love and connection and intimacy because you can actually see the polarity of where traditional pornography is online, and it's very male-dominated. And what happens in that is not generally the real world. So when kids go into any situation and even want to take the step over the threshold to say, okay, I want to have sex for the first time, what the fuck do we do? Oh, do I do this and do I do that? Do I smack this? Do I do this? Do I just lie back? Do I just like take this? Do I pray for something really good to happen to me that isn't something that I really like? It's not good. When I was younger, I remember I had a friend whose dad was a trucker, and we found, like, just on his freezer in the hallway outside in the lean-to, there was a huge pile of pornography magazines. So 15 years old, we're like, yeah, this is great, what's all this? But it stays with you, it's an indelible mark, and it's like, what does that mean? And how do you think about that? And what does that mean in terms of opinions towards women and sexuality? The degradation and such, like, or even how does it make you feel as a guy? I can only speak from a guy's perspective here. It's really hard. I try and be empathetic to everyone, and this presentation tries to be as well. And I'd love to have conversations with anyone after this from various gender configurations as well. This is an amazing website called Beautiful Agony. Has anyone seen Beautiful Agony before? Yeah? Facette de la petite mort. The faces of the little death. So in French, the orgasm is called the little death. Romantic, kinda. But this website, I'd like to say, this has just come out. This has actually been around for about 7 or 8 years. And you can subscribe, you have to pay. And you can see a video for free if you actually go to this website. And it's just the faces of people orgasming. Because these guys believe that you actually get a lot of eroticism and connection when we're having sex by looking at the face of the person we're having sex with. It's actually a really amazing, visceral online experience. I think these guys are getting it right a little bit. They've been getting a lot more press recently as well. This is Cindy Gallop. Has anyone heard of Cindy Gallop? Yeah, a few people. She did an amazing TED Talk. So go online, look at TED Talk, look up Cindy Gallop about Make Love, Not Porn. She's an ex-chairman of BBDO, I think, BBDO. And she was like, you know what, this ad industry is a little fucked up. But the world's a little fucked up, and connection's a little fucked up. And I like having sex with young men. Cindy Gallop said that. And younger men, I should say. And it's like, we need to educate people about what the porn world is and the real world is. So she didn't just have that talk and then talk about it wherever. She actually set up a website called makelovenotporn.tv. It's about real world sex. If you look at the hashtag real world sex, you actually find more of that online and a lot of her discussions. Make Love Not Porn is a site where two individuals, you know, gay, straight, whatever configuration, can have sex and video it, and it's clumsy and sweaty, and you laugh, and it's stupid, and it's connective, and it's real, and it's human. Wow, that's amazing. And you rent a video for $5 for 2 weeks, and you can watch it as many times as you want. You can't download it or anything like that. I guess you can share it with your partner. You can share it with your friends if really you wanted to. I mean, that's pretty forward-looking, you know, groups. But what's really great is once you watch a couple of these videos, your traditional view of pornography has changed forever. I'm a great proponent and supporter of this. I spend money on this site because what it does is you try and go to places like YouPorn or Pornhub or anything like that, it just seems like so artificial and so away from reality that you can never take it seriously. But you can take the happiness and the love and the connection that happens in Cindy Gallop's Make Love Not Porn.tv videos very, very seriously. Okay, apps. We need apps. Apps for sex. Okay. I'm going to play you this video. This is a bit of a spoof, but it's quite funny.
Are you texting?
No, I'm just checking your phone.
Is this all you?
What's about that? Sweet, I earned a badge for kissing you before midnight.
What did it say, badge?
If he was ready.
He's like, this is when you can't get the address, it's there, you know. Wasn't trying to small advertising.
Hold on.
Just a bunch of friends. And also your partners.
It's by College Humor. Go and check out online. It goes on for about 3 minutes. It's like, oh, I'm just one day away from being the mayor of Jessica, and it's like, who's this guy? And it's like, he checked in 3 hours ago. It's kind of interesting. You know, Michael talked about games and gamification and being in the moment in context. Kind of seems a little funny to reach for the phone at this point in time. But 5% of people have checked their Facebook, 12% have answered a phone call, and 10% have read a text during sex. I'm not going to ask who's done any of these things. But it's pretty crazy where we've gone with technology. It's taking us away from something that's pretty good. Or maybe it's just like so monotonous and routine. It's like if you saw your partner as like, oh, I just need to like, oh, when am I on Instagram? Like, I've got to like, you need to stop having sex and have a conversation, right? But it's interesting how pervasive technology and these mechanisms for connection have become versus what's a raw, visceral human connection. This is an amazing application called Spreadsheets. Have anyone heard of the application Spreadsheets? You can quantify your sex with your partner. So you download it. There's about 10,000 people have downloaded this. Download it, throw it on the bed, and measure the duration, thrusts, and decibel peak. It's kind of a gimmick, but it's kind of serious as well, right? Who really wants to quantify how good they are? How do you measure the quality of the sex that we're getting? Duration, thrust, and decibel peak? Well, you might hurt someone, they might scream. That's not necessarily a good thing, but the decibels are going to be high. The duration might be really long, but you just might be really tired by the end of it. Like, is that quality? Thrusts? What about slow love making? Come on. You know, I'm not sure how they deal with that side of things. Okay, apps, done. Robots and virtual reality. This is Roxy. This is called 3X's in Roxy. This is the world's first sex robot. And it's about $6,000. Roxy, you know, nearly looks and nearly feels like the real thing. But it's interesting as an idea. It's like, who would buy that? There are guys that have relationships with dolls. There are guys that have relationships with computers. The movie Her is like, no, that's pretty wild fantasy. It's no. Otaku in Japan have relationships with their girlfriends on their Nintendo DS's and on their Samsung phones and on their Apple iPhones. They do. And these girlfriends say, oh, it's late, you need to go to bed. It's like, oh, okay, yeah, sleep well, oh, yeah, I love you, bye. They do this. And then we've got the Oculus Rift, one of the biggest Kickstarter campaigns, I think, of recent years. And then Facebook buy them for $3 billion. Why? Well, there's something interesting. Is that who's tried Oculus Rift here? Wow, that's a lot of people, right? How does it make you feel?
Seasick.
Makes you feel seasick? Anyone else? How does it make anyone else feel?
Claustrophobic.
Claustrophobic. So I was over at Globe Mechanic with Karis, and he was like, try this on. It was like, ding. I'm on a roller coaster. Okay. And you're moving around, and it's a raw, visceral, it's a physical, and it's an emotional ride as well as a visual ride. And as the HD qualities of that video gets better, we can really transform who we are and where we are into a different place. And there's a couple of case studies. These are pretty crazy. So if anyone speaks Japanese, you can read this text, but this will be quite self-explanatory, this video. That's one of the biggest pop stars in Japan. Hanumiku, right, Jordan? Is it Hanumiku? Honestly, one of the biggest pop stars in Japan is a virtual reality, augmented reality singer called Hanumiku. Hundreds of thousands and millions of people in Japan see this girl, and what someone has built is an Oculus Rift where she will kiss you. Right? So not only are you getting the visual stimulus, people are actually putting haptic and touch and feel. Doesn't seem too crazy, does it? Maybe it does. Not for the guys that like love this girl and want to actually be touched and kissed by her. I kind of love that. I kind of love how these are Meccano, we built this and this happens. I went to her cocktail restaurant in Japan. You can have cocktails, it's amazing. Then we get really, really creepy. That's kind of the safe demonstration of basically Oculus Rift that jerks you off. But virtual sex, right? Virtual reality. You stick your penis into a robot. You stick your penis into virtual reality like simulation. Is this what people want? Some people definitely want this. You know, look at the sex toy industry, the fleshlight, and all these things. There was a guy who had a Kickstarter for a blowjob machine. He like raised his money in like 2 days flat. It was amazing. But it's kind of creepy. I think the future is potentially celebrity sex. It's like, hey, let's think of a celebrity that's good. I've got to be careful now. Sorry? Skeletor. I want to have sex with Skeletor. That's... I don't swing that way, Michael, unfortunately. Sorry? Rosie Huntington Whiteley, I'd like to thank my girlfriend for a sensible suggestion. Yeah, but imagine, you might have pirated versions where people actually generate celebrity versions of this. You plug this into this, and actually it's like, holy shit, I'm having sex with 5,000 people right now, and I'm not in control of that avatar and whatever. And you know, you have to go to the dark web to get this stuff, and it's like it's a huge invasion of privacy by proxy. It's kind of weird. This is sex by proxy. It's kind of a dark future, right? But this is really interesting. A guy and a girl put on the Oculus Rift and then experience what it's like to be each other. We talked about empathy a few times. I'm stopping, that video goes on and on and on, but you get it. We talked about empathy a lot. Imagine if you can use that technology and other technologies to understand other people's points of view, whether that's your partner or someone else's, or really, learn what it's like to fit in someone's body. Maybe they don't like that body. Maybe they love that body. Maybe many people love that body, but they see the flaws. But you can experience what they're going through. And maybe that deepens the connection with those people. So it's not always all a dark world. The Oculus Rift is going to be a game changer, and other technologies like it. There's various people in the room that work in this space. I think like Haig's here and Karis is here. And go and find those people to have a chat to. But that's kind of where we are today, and we've only really touched on a couple of bits and pieces, because we've only got a short period of time today. So I'm going to go to the future. Let's look at the future. Let's look at the future of sex bots, because sex bots, women that are like robots and guys that are robots. Okay, so why don't we actually have robot as a sexual identity? What happens when we do design a robot for sex work? Is it a guy, a girl? Is it a robot? How do you treat that person? How do you give that robot rights? Does a robot deserve to have rights? It gets really complex.
All seems like a joke to me, but according to British artificial intelligence researcher Dr. David Levy, in a few decades, romance between humans and robots will be a normal thing.
So within about 40 years, people will be falling in love with robots and even marrying them.
And this could be the great-grandmother of the future perfect robot mate. Meet Wansi, America's first sex robot. It talks and senses touch.
What are you wearing?
I'm wearing a nice outfit that you bought me. I really like it. I was not having kids.
Artificial intelligence engineer Doc Hines believes that he created the perfect alternative for those who, for different reasons, can't or are too busy or too lazy to connect with human beings.
We created like a bridge, a gap between, going and maybe going out with someone else, just meeting someone in a bar or what have you, and just randomly maybe picking up a social disease. Instead of doing that, you could have a sex robot that would be your companion and not only listen to you, talk to you, interact with you.
So why not have a sexuality that's a robot? It's a really good argument that this is someone that we're going to love, potentially. Researchers at Victoria University in New Zealand think that sex robots will in many places replace human sex workers by 2015. Is that a good thing? Well, maybe it's a good thing to take people off the streets and out of harm's way, but what does this look like? Let's go back to Japan. Cat cafes, hey, you can play with a cat. It's like, walk in and you walk into a McDonald's and it's like, I'd like the McSex, please. Would you like fries with that, sir? It's like, no, but I'll take 3 of those dildos and some of that lube over there, please. The McLube. Right, but like, if you get what I mean, it's going to turn into industry. I'm kind of being a bit ridiculous on purpose, but once people like advertisers and big companies get hold of this, it's going to be big business. I don't think it's a bad thing to have sex workers that are robots, but you're having sex with a robot. You're not having sex with a girl. You're having sex with a robot that looks like a girl, or a guy, or neither. They actually say that robot sex is safer sex, free from the constraints, precautions, and uncertainties of the real deal. Think about hygiene, especially if you've got high throughput. The modern day pimp is like maybe driving around in a transit truck with 3 of these in the back of his truck. Is sexual health less of a concern? No. There's still human problems because humans interact in there. How are humans going to feel after this? They might feel good, they might feel bad. But the democracy might come from the cost of actually having some of these in the home. Sex proxies. There's some researchers last year at the University of Washington that wore these EEG helmets and implants. And one guy in one place, I think it was in Washington, and there was another guy in a place a couple of 100 miles away. And one guy was typing on a keyboard and thinking about typing on a keyboard, and the guy involuntarily 200 to 300 miles away was doing it because one guy's thoughts were transmitted and transmitted impulses and signals to that guy's brain to actually make his body do things that he wanted him to. So why not apply that to sex? Why not apply that to intimacy and hugs? Imagine like people that are paraplegic, you know, or disabled in any way that, you know, that they're unable to have sex in normal ways. Imagine if you could actually make love to your husband or your wife by giving impulses and signals of the way that you actually think about things. That doesn't seem so crazy and dark for the future. It could be quite liberating. But then someone else would still be having sex with your partner. How do you feel about that? In the future, it might not matter. People might be more liberal in the future. I think people will be way more liberal in the future. And, you know, there's various ways that this actually works. Go and read up about this stuff. It's pretty amazing. But brain simulation and action, and these things will get cheaper and cheaper and cheaper and accessible, that you'll be able to buy them in London Drugs and other places like that. 10 years ago, it cost about $10 million to sequence your DNA. And 2 months ago, I gave $100 to 23andMe. You know, all this technology is going to change in price. Even like things like the Oculus Rift are really affordable. Schrumpfgesellschaft. My really bad pronunciation of German. Sorry, Boris. Which means declining society. And a lot of academics use this term, I think just because it sounds really cool. But we're actually in a world that, yeah, we're growing as a population. We're probably going to tip out at around about 10 billion people in the world. But there are many, many countries that are actually declining in population, and it's because people aren't having sex and procreating and having relationships in the way where we actually produce children. The falling birth rate will probably have a very severe impact on the Japanese economy, Yamada told Bloomberg. Japanese social security system will probably collapse. Because in a few years in Japan, there will be more people over the age of 65 than there will be under the age of 65. So that means there's less money going into the social security pot to look after the older population, which is now living and living and living into their 90s and beyond. And it's going to get more severe, and it's because in Japan, people aren't forming relationships. And it's a mixture of technology taking away the intimacy of humans and the work weeks that they do and a whole bunch of different things. It's really interesting when you look at it. So this isn't just about sex and technology, but it's part of it. Because a lot of people are actually using sex as proxies, sex technology as proxies for relationships. The Prime Minister in Japan has allocated 3 billion yen this year to the program to actually have people have parties to meet each other so they can lift birth rates just in this current fiscal year. It's a serious, serious problem. Germany's got an issue, Denmark's got an issue, Moldavia's got a real huge issue. Read about Moldavia, it's a strange, strange story and case study, but you know, China's going to be 50% of its population by the end of the century, so will Russia. Even in India, you've gone from like 6.25 children per family to about 2.4. It's changing, and population is not going to be evenly distributed, so that's really tough. How the hell do we solve that? You know, we might have more population over there and they're struggling, and less population over here, and we're going to struggle because we're not going to be able to look after our elderly, but we're not even going to be able to hold society together. And then I was like, what about commercial surrogacy? That'd be a great idea. Maybe I can go online and say, right, I'd like a child, please. Okay. What's the, you know, I'd like a Caucasian child, red hair, blah, 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 blah. My partner would come in, it's like, yes, this, 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 and this. And they'd bring it together and say, great, we need some sperm or an egg, and someone else is going to have your baby for you. They're not going to ruin your image. We might even raise your child for the first year, pop you out. Crazy stuff, right? What, is this really crazy? There's already surrogates, but commercial surrogacy on a massive scale. I don't know if that's a good idea, is it? This is a quote from a woman in India. I'm proud to have given birth to a beautiful baby. The baby and parents are in my prayers forever. I feel like part of the family. This is a commercial surrogate in India. If you choose to be a commercial surrogate in India, you get $6,000 from the $28,000 total surrogacy procedure cost. It's big business, right? People are making a lot of money about having children and someone else having your child and making it easier for you to have children and actually bring children to the world. In India, they think it's a $2 billion a year business today. Commercial surrogacy, that doesn't exist. It exists in India. And it exists in other parts of the world to a certain extent. But the question I ask you is that a bad idea to have surrogacy? If we've got these issues with population or whatever, people are too busy, don't want to have relationships. Some women choose to have a child on their own. Some guys want to have children on their own. Same-sex marriage, everything. Why not? Why isn't surrogacy a bad idea? I don't think it is a bad idea. I just think the regulations and the politics and everything around it and the humanity around that action is going to be really difficult to unravel. But trust me, I think in a few years' time, this is going to have to happen just to hold societies together. And that brings me on to solipsistic society. So we need these things because we're not talking to each other. Solipsis is the idea that you live in a bubble. And I don't care about other people. There might be 2 or 3 people in similar bubbles and we kind of care about each other. But I don't care about other people. I don't care about their politics. I don't care about what they do for a living. I care about myself. Everything about my life, my whole perception about what's reality is within myself. And this is dangerous because we're not talking to people as much as we want. I talk a lot about technology and intimacy and connectivity and engagement. And we have phones and computers and social networks and everything that we're using as an excuse for having a conversation. I've deleted Facebook off of my phone. After I've got a rule, like 2 texts, and then I speak to them on the phone. I ideally want to go and speak to people face to face. On my Facebook, I got rid of everyone that I wouldn't bump into down the street and have a beer with. You know, let's get connected. The reason we didn't put a wireless code on the wall in here is because I don't want you tweeting and Facebooking and everything like that. Sure, you can use your own plans, but it makes you think about where we are and why we spent the money to be here. We spent the money to listen to the speakers, but also to speak to each other. And that's what the Unconference is about as well. Thank you very much.